Welcome to the Dental Team Podcast. I'm your host, Kiera Dent, and I have this crazy idea that maybe I could combine a doctor and a team member's perspective because let's face it, dentistry can be a challenging profession with those two perspectives. I've been a dental assistant, treatment coordinator, scheduler, biller, office manager, regional manager, practice owner, and I have a team of traveling consultants where we have traveled to over 165 different offices coaching teams. Yep, we don't just understand you, we are you. Our mission is to positively impact the world of dental, and I believe that this podcast is the greatest way I can help elevate teams, grow VIP experiences, reduce stress, and create A-teams. Welcome to the Dental Team Podcast. Hello, Dental Team listeners. This is Kiera, and you guys, I wanted to do another office autopsy. I am back on the road traveling. Yes, it's true. I was home for almost 9 months. Granted, I did have Antarctica in there, but from consulting, it's been about 9 months since I've physically been in an office. I've done a lot of virtual consulting, and I've done a lot of traction meetings, setting people up for their quarter. So basically creating a 90-day plan for a lot of offices, which has been really fun. But I just went back on the road and I was in an office and the doctor told me how much he enjoys my office autopsies. So I decided, hey, I'm driving to my next office today. Ooh. And don't worry, guys, I don't really know where I am on the road. It's fine. That lane just ended. We're car casting. Some people told me they get nervous for me. Don't ever get nervous for me, guys. Podcasting is no different than talking on the phone, other than it looks like I'm holding a microphone and karaokeing while I drive. But anyway, so the office that I was just recently in, I want to office autopsy them. So they're a pretty big practice. They have, six operatories, 2 doctors, 4 hygienists, 4 front office. The practice does just over $200,000 a month. And, when I was in there, systems are pretty tight in this practice. I feel something that they do really, really, really well is the front office actually is in their lanes. When I go into a lot of other practices, front office tends to be, and I hear this regularly, that my practice, everybody up there, we all just do everything. And although I like everybody helping each other out, I'm not crazy about everybody not having an assigned role. That creates that everybody, nobody, somebody scenarios. For example, everybody thought anybody could do it, but nobody ended up doing it. And somebody thought everybody was going to take care of it and anybody could have done it, but nobody ended up doing it. So somebody got in trouble and right? Like the whole thing. And so that's what happens. And I call it front office soup. It's just kind of all sloshy up there. And it's not as efficient. There's a lot of missed balls because no one really is the gatekeeper of certain tasks. So that's why in this practice, that's something I feel that they're doing really, really, really well. They have someone who's solely over hygiene, and her KPI is to have 95% hygiene full. And right now it's COVID, and right now we're in October and November and those slower months from COVID, and she is rocking it. She is on that phone. She's calling people. She's working on not letting them break up with her. She's really good with the health histories and making sure that family members and referrals and all that's taken care of. Then they have 2 treatment coordinators for this practice. And in this practice, they do a good job with their follow-up. They track their case acceptance. They're using a treatment tracker, so they're seeing the patterns of diagnosing. And then they have 4 hygienists. And right now, because they only have 6 operatories, if you guys do the math, if we're running 4 hygienists, that means we can only run 2 doctor ops. And that is actually where this practice is in a struggle. So for practices that are kind of quote unquote bursting at the seams, I want to use this practice as an office autopsy for you to look to see different scenarios that you can do. I won't let you know what this office chose to do, but I'll give you some different scenarios. So what I noticed was and I talked with the treatment coordinator, and she made a comment and she said, I feel like we're not having as high of treatment cases as we used to have come through. And she said, so our close rate's really high, but we have a lot of smaller treatment plans. And so on that, we started digging in deeper. And the reality is, you guys, if you're doing too many hygiene exams, so if doctors are doing too many hygiene exams, it's been statistically proven that your diagnosing will go down. I know Mark Costas and Jake Conway and DSI, they track this a lot. And they've noticed, and I'm not going to give their specific stats. I will just say I've noticed from like 130 to 150, maybe 200 exams when I'm in practices, your diagnosing tends to say, okay, I think 200 is on the high end for a solo doctor per month. Granted, if you're in pedo, you're going to have a lot more. This is more speaking towards general. Well, this office was doing just double that because they have 4 hygienists running. So I was listening to exams and I felt the doctor, and I also noticed that they were taking an hour for crown seats. And I asked them, I said, does it really take you guys an hour to do a crown seat? And they said, well, no, we just have to build in a buffer because doctor often is stuck in exams. And so we just have to build in a buffer. So what I was noticing was that this office really isn't maximizing doctors' production schedule because what they're doing is they're buffering for doctor to get into those 4 hygiene exams. Doctor's not able to do as comprehensive per se. And also, we don't have any space to put it in the schedule. They're booked out till about 3 months out. And so in this practice, it was one of those things of recognizing we have a couple of different options, but also when doctors don't feel that there's space, and this is nothing personal, this is just psychological. I mean, think about it. If you know that your schedule, so your personal life schedule is jam-packed, and I say, hey, I really want to go on a 1-week vacation with you. You're probably thinking, no way, Jose, not going to happen. If I say, hey, I want to do lunch, you're like, oh gosh, it's like super, super, super tight. I know lunch is just an hour, but it's super tight. I don't know if I can really fit them in my schedule. That's the same thing as a patient schedule. Doctors, you're not going to want to diagnose these huge procedures knowing full well that they can't come in for many months. And it's not that you're doing anything wrong. You're not intentionally trying to do less diagnosing. You're not intentionally trying to not give bigger treatment plans. You just don't have the space. So you're naturally contracting your exams. So when I mentioned this to the doctor was very receptive and noticed that, yes, he wasn't maybe presenting those because you don't want to disappoint people. And just by nature, if you know you're bursting at the seams, you're not going to book a family vacation. That just is insanity. You're not going to do it. And so we're having to work with this because for hygienists, typically in most practices, the ratio is 2 hygienists seeing 8 patients a day per doctor to fill that doctor schedule. I've seen it on less. I've seen it on more. It just depends on your practice. So on this practice, what would you guys do? I want you to, before I give you my solutions, I want you to think, what would you do in this practice? Okay, they work Monday through Friday. I know that was one of your questions. Wait, do they work Fridays? Yes, they do. They only have 3 hygienists on Mondays and Fridays, but that's when they bring in a second doctor. So we have that. Second doctor's also booked out extensively. So what do we do in this situation? So these were the scenarios I presented, and this is what I wanted to dive into because I think often we've got to get creative and we need to think outside the box. So that's what we did with this practice is we really started thinking outside the box of what could we do. So the first one, that's the easiest one that I probably would implement would be a split shift of the team. I already have 4 hygienists, so I'm not lacking for hygienists. I could split shift them. I could bring in a full-time doctor. Maybe the one who's only working at part-time could come in full-time. And I already have 4 front office team members and I have 3 dental assistants. So I could easily open up more doctor chairs, easily drop that down, split shift. So one assistant works with each doctor and then we have an overlap from that, maybe 10 to 4 zone where our 3rd assistant can come in and run a column, or maybe we need to snag another assistant during that time if need be. That was an immediate solution. I only have 6 operatories, but I know we can do more, and we already have the hygiene to sustain. Typically, when practices want to grow, they don't have the hygiene to sustain, and that's where they run into trouble, is they don't have hygiene. This office does not have that. They have it. It's all there. So that was one option. We also looked to see how much hygiene do they have to ensure, before we broke it down, that they had enough hygiene to sustain this idea. Because if we don't have enough hygiene, and maybe they're just jam-packed right now from COVID, but we actually would consolidate down to 3 three columns of hygiene and figure out what to do with that fourth hygienist. Maybe we need to run some new patient marketing campaigns. Maybe it's referrals. Maybe it's reactivation. But we've got to make sure that we actually have the hygiene to support that before we want to drop into a split shift schedule. I also, when I was there, originally my split shift schedule was going to be from 7 to 2 for Dr. 1, and then basically from 11 to 6 for Dr. 2. So that would give both of them minimal overlap time, but they'd both still be there so we could do associate calibration meetings. The whole team would be there together. Yes, when split shifts come in, you have a little bit tricky of morning huddles and office meetings, but the reality is that's pretty easy to work through. Okay, so that was option 1. Option 2, I came up with a different split shift where I actually got Dr. 1 out of there earlier. Dr. 2 came in earlier, and they were all done by 5 o'clock, so that way I didn't have to shake anyone's schedules. And we could still run for hygiene 8 to 5, but I was able to expand Dr. 1 a little bit earlier in the day, expand Dr. 2 a little bit later in the day, but pretty much ending at 5 o'clock. I just cut one of the doctor days, and we would make sure that they were highly productive. I also considered having one of the doctors run all 4 exams while the other doctor was producing, because the reality is they could probably produce more dentistry if they weren't doing exams, even if I had both doctors there. So those were some other ideas we came up with. Another option, obviously it's pretty direct and forward thinking, is do we want to drop insurances? So dropping insurances will cut the base, and it will make it to where we're seeing more like higher paying patients. Not that they're better patients, they're just insurances, higher coverage. If they don't want to stay on that, that's fine. They can come over with a membership plan. But dropping insurances was another option. They see a lot of PPO, and we could drop insurances. That was definitely an option we discussed. However, the caveat to that is that they actually have a building next door that they're going to expand out and probably open 6 more operatories, but it won't be ready for another year. So, do you guys see the pickle? The pickle is, hey, we've built up a staff to be able to push through the wall, have more operatories, but we know we have at least a year. It's literally this great building. It's going to be fantastic. All they'll do is break through the wall. They won't have to move. They just go to expand. But that's not for another year. What do we do today? Because the reality is, if we can't see those patients, we can't get them in doctor's schedule, we have too much hygiene for doctors. So we've got to do something else. Are you guys sick of trying to figure it out on your own? I know I am. When I'm trying to run a business, sometimes I just think like there's got to be a better way to do this. And so for me, my answer has been to find someone who's done it and does it really, really, really well. Like I'm talking the best of the best of the best. I want someone who's been in my shoes, somebody who understands what I'm going through. When I was looking for the consulting business, I found a coach who literally has run a consulting business. Well, that seems like the perfect fit. So you guys, right now, we have a few spaces open in our Platinum Consulting. That is in the consulting where we actually come to your practice. We help you get systems implemented. We don't just tell you what systems to implement. We actually implement them with you and for you. You guys, it is one of the best investments I've ever made is to hire a coach who understands the business I'm in, who's lived it, who's done it. And that's what we in the Dental team do. We literally physically fly to you. So if you're sick of trying to figure it out on your own, if you just want somebody who understands you, join our Platinum. I'd love to have you. I'd love to have our consulting team come out and see you, be in your office, be with your team, and truly help you get onto the easy path of dentistry. It doesn't have to be hard. So join us in the Platinum. We'd love to have you. Another option is obviously to extend our doctor a couple of days and have them work longer hours, but that also puts a burnout and a strain on our doctors. So does seeing 4 hygiene columns. So what we ended up doing was, it was a collaborative effort. I will not take full credit for this. The office has 2 hours blocked off every single week for a team meeting. Now, I think that's fantastic, but we came up with the solution for now because doctor wasn't ready to do split shifts and do massive changes, and that's okay. I think one thing I really loved about this office, and this is why I wanted to autopsy it, is because so many times I think we want to grow and expand before we're actually ready, and we don't know why. We're just comparing ourselves with other people, and well, that's what they did, so that's what I need to do. But I think something I will caution all of you is you will know, and this is what I told the doctor, you will know when you're ready to jump. Make sure that you're ready. Yes, sometimes we need to push ourselves out of the nest because some of us sit back and dilly-dally. But I know for certain when something's right, I jump. And when it's not, I'm more hesitant. And so I've learned to trust that, to trust my mind and my heart, my gut. Does that feel right? And if not, I know it doesn't logically make sense, but I'm just not confident in that right now. So he wasn't ready to split shift it yet. He wasn't ready to do those things. And it could be that we're for sure at least a year out before we can push through that wall. So what we decided to do is for the next 3 months, we're going to watch and see if this will fix it. I don't think it'll fix it perfectly. I know it won't fix it perfectly. However, sometimes just doing something. My motto is for patient acceptance, for offices, is let's just try something. Because if we sit there constantly debating, more is lost through indecision than a wrong decision. So let's at least try something. So for this one, we decided to try it on those 2-hour meetings. We actually could, in theory, take 2 of those meetings. So they're still going to meet every other week, but we're not going to have them meet every single week anymore. What we're going to do is on those off weeks, that's going to actually give me 2 hours of doctor time, but I can use 3 columns of doctor time. So it's actually opening up, theoretically, if we've got 2 with 3 columns, that's 6 hours right there. Do that twice per month, that's 12 hours per month of doctor time. Now we have to be really careful not to fill that with fluff, because if we're going to give up meeting time, we need to ensure that we actually are being super, super, super hyper focused to make sure that that is reserved for bigger treatment plans. That way doctor can diagnose more. So that was implementation number 1. Implementation number 2 that we decided to do is to get all the hygienists to tee up treatment better. The hygienists are doing a really good job, but over the next 3 months, I'm having them work with the doctor every other week in their meeting time. So during that 2-hour block, they have a 1-hour full team meeting and then a 1-hour training meeting. During that 1-hour training meeting per department, we're having hygiene work with the doctor on what would doctor diagnose. Okay, so WWDD. What would doctor diagnose? So they're pulling up FMXs and they're making sure they can tee up doctor 99% accurate for these treatment plans. The reason we want to do this is when doctor brings in another associate or the current associate, we can make sure that all diagnosing is just like what doctor would do, and the hygienists are the ones who actually are being calibrated. So when we bring in future doctors, the hygiene department is actually the one that can run this, because a lot of owner doctors are scared to give up exams to new doctors because they're afraid that they won't diagnose like the owner doctor does. So with that, that's why we decided to tee up the hygiene department, so hygiene can help actually train associate doctors in the future. And it's also going to make exam times less. We practiced perfect handoffs. And we also worked on, because I noticed the doctor was giving multiple options in treatment plans, which happens all the time. So they're really, really, really fantastic. They already have a patient report card that they give their patients, which, by the way, if you want ideas on that, let us know. Happy to share some ideas with you. Email us hello@thedentallyteam.com. We won't give you office specifics, but we'll give you some ideas and some pre-made forms that we can help you with that we've kind of customized ourselves. But they have a patient report card. So we put on there the patient's preference. So all the dental assistants and hygienists are going to start asking the patient what their preferred priority is when it comes to their dental needs. Is it cosmetic, longevity, function, or cost? Now, people get kind of weird with me when we actually ask, is cost a priority? But we had a room of over 20 people, we'll say. Maybe there was 15, but I had all of them raise their hand of what was their primary focus when they were talking about their dental needs. So this is a dental team that I was surveying, and in the room, I would say it was kind of split across the board in pretty accurate quadrants, except for function. Function didn't come up there pretty high. Cosmetics and longevity definitely came up higher end. Granted, we work in dentistry, so that makes a lot of sense. And then cost, there was only a handful of people that have cost. So it's really interesting. We always think that, well, everyone, if we ask if cost is a priority, all of them will say it. It's actually not true. You'll be quite surprised when you directly ask people. Then you can actually tailor your treatment plans based on what their main objective is. Yes, of course, you can help them see, because if someone tells me cost is their main objective, but I know an implant's going to be the better option, guess what? I can then use that 6 month of healing time to play to their cost need and still get them to want an implant. It doesn't mean I've got to offer a flipper or a bridge. It just means I need to work my verbiage to be conscientious of what their main objective is. They've already told me the secret sauce, so therefore treatment planning, diagnosing is much easier, much more direct, and much more tailored to that patient. You guys, I totally snagged that from my own dental practice that I go to because I loved it so much. So I helped this office. So hygienist is going to work on what would doctor diagnose. That way they have it teed up. They're also going to ask patient preference before the doctor even comes in there. So when doctor comes in, doctor already has the cue. Patient preference is cost. And here is the recap. And the hygienists have already teed up the treatment of what doctor's most likely going to diagnose. They have not diagnosed it. They've just teed it up. So that's going to cut down on our exam times, make our exams more direct, more focused to get better patient acceptance. Plus, we opened up 12 hours of doctor time per month. Also, because we've got a lot of hygiene right now due to COVID, I said, let's see what happens in the 3-month shakeout. And if we can, because maybe during November, December, there's more holiday travel. If we can, we're going to consolidate hygiene to 3 days, knowing some of the hygienists want to take some time off. If we can, of course, we want to fill it first and foremost. But if not, we're going to open up some more doctor hours, especially with end of year benefits coming. We don't want to hurt this practice and suffocate it because we don't have enough hours. So that's what we ended up doing with this practice, knowing all the different pieces. But that's why I like to dive into office autopsies for you guys. Like, what would you do? How would you face it? Every person is different. Every doctor wants to work differently. I've got some doctors like, no way. I know I could open up Fridays, but like, that's my family time. Or some people are like, yep, I'll do it for a year. And we have a year cutoff date. And so the hygiene team knows, hey, for a year we're doing this and we rotate through. So not everyone's having to work night shifts. Or maybe we just do two nights to open up a few more hours. There's lots and lots and lots of different ways to skin this, all right? We can go through so many different scenarios, but it just depends on, I think it's really important to make sure you as the owner are crystal clear of what you will or will not do. So get clear. If you're okay to fudge, like you guys, for 3 years, I traveled the road like a maniac. I felt like I was in the circus. I was on the road nonstop. I would be gone. I think I was gone 265 days a year. That's a lot. I was home 100 days. You count that out. That's not many days. And a lot of those days that I count as being home, I actually would take off again halfway through one of those days that I was counting as being at home. So I probably was home a lot less than that. I saw a lot of amazing offices, but that was something I was willing to do to grow the business. And now I don't think I want to be gone that much. I like being home. I enjoy it. And the business doesn't need me to do that to sustain. I knew that was a short-term part of my life. Maybe 3.5 years feels long-term to you, but for me, I don't have kids. I knew I could put it out there. My husband, he works in a hospital, so he's got crazy hours anyway. I knew if I was going to take the time to do it, this was a great time for us to do it. So now my life's shifting, but being crystal clear of what you're willing to do or what you're not willing to do can help you then decide these things. But I will say, when you guys are listening to this for your own practice, check to see, do you have enough doctor hours per hygiene hours? Are you suffocating your practice? Are you having less diagnosis because we're seeing so much hygiene? Are you having your hygiene team teed up? Also, another thing we did was during that 1 hour of training per department, the assistant team is actually going to be working on their iTero scanning to get that faster. So they're going to practice scans during that hour training. Plus they're going to practice like seating crowns faster. And they're basically drilling out their skills to get them faster and faster. So think doctors when you went to dental school and how you did so many crown preps to get faster and faster and faster to get your hand skills faster. Well, similarly, dental assistants having that same type of training. So right now they're focused on their KPI is getting scans down to 7 minutes and then closing 5 Invisalign cases per month for that department. So because that's their KPI for this month and that's their focus, we're working on scans to make sure they can get faster scans so they can be more efficient. So that was there's a lot of other things we did in this practice, but I really wanted to dive into and tickle your brains today of what do you do? And this is what I think the value of a consultant is in a lot of ways. We think outside the box. I love doing this, you guys. I'm a visionary through and through and through. So I love to think on the spot, to think afterwards, to really come up with creative plans, to come up with different scenarios. I kind of envision it as like designing a house and how many different variations can you have, because there's always a solution if you're willing to find it. Sometimes you've got to get really creative. Right now, I think we've found that we've got to get really creative in order to be successful in our practices. So there's your guys' office autopsy. I'm really proud of this office. I'm excited to see their progress over these next 3 months, and then for us to continue working towards what they ultimately want of having those 12 ops, having their 2 full-time doctors. They're prepared for it. We just need to make sure they keep their overhead in check with the extra team members and that they're producing the dentistry to sustain it and giving the best VIP patient care along with it. So you guys, that's your office autopsy. If you want to be an office autopsy that we dive into, send your name in. We'd love to talk about it. We'd love to see you in practice and an office autopsy your practice. Or sometimes it's fun to also get OMs or doctors on the podcast as well to office autopsy what it was like from their perspective as I go through this. So you guys, that is your office autopsy. I hope you have a fantastic day. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time on the Dental Team Podcast. Guess what's back, you guys? Women Dentists Connect. Yes, Dr. Summer Casmel and myself are putting on our first ever virtual event. We did it last year. We had raving fans, and due to COVID-19, we decided we're going to continue on. So mark your calendars, November 13th and 14th, all women in dentistry. We don't care who you are. If you're a doctor, a treatment coordinator, scheduler, biller, office manager, spouse, we want all females to come with us to Women Dentists Connect. So pop on over to our website, womendentistconnect.com. Tickets are on sale right now. And we even did a thing where it's your entire team can actually come. We want all of you to come. It's going to be CE. We're going to talk about mom guilt, how to run a successful business. We're having an incredible speaker lineup with Dr. Mark Costas. He's our only male cameo. We're having Desiree Yazdan on social media marketing, Aaron Elliott, who's talking about sleep apnea. We're also bringing on Dr. Amanda Wilson to talk about ortho. And of course, Dr. Summer Casmel and myself will be there talking about how to hold your team accountable, how to run effective meetings. So don't wait. Get on over to womendentistconnect.com. I'll see you guys November 13th and 14th.
And that wraps it up for another episode of the Dental Team Podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.